Does the language you use have any impact on the success of our students or our internal success for ourselves? I'm listening to a podcast at the moment all about success language. And it's interesting because a few years ago, when I was early in my career as a teacher, I noticed that one of my mentors, he always used to call his students brilliant designers, brilliant builders, fantastic engineers, all these things. He would identify them as brilliant or as amazing at doing this identity thing. So whether it was design or building or whatever it may be. And the interesting thing about this is actually all this science that I'm just hearing about, that there's links between identifying success and calling it out or reading it, because you can embody it and then you actually perform a lot better. Now, you might be thinking that's pretty skeptical kind of work, but I actually adopted his approach when I first began teaching. And anytime I would communicate to my class, I would identify them as a specific avatar. If it was a course on woodwork, I'd call them brilliant builders. If it was a course for engineering, excellent engineers. I would give them the title of the actual profession. Now, the curious thing about this is I actually had a small design class, and I called them the D&T Dream Team. They were amazing. I was able to teach them for 2 years, and they were the highest performing class I'd ever achieved and ever had the privilege of teaching in my career. They just blitzed it. They absorbed everything because they embodied what winning was. They took on criticism, they took on feedback, they took on all these things, but they put the effort in and they just kept going. And it's interesting because this study that she's talking about on this podcast is all around the language that we use. And she's an international speaker, and she was saying, when I get on stage or before I get on stage, what are my methods so I can actually convey the message that I want in an authoritative way or just in an accurate way? And she basically said there's all sorts of things. And she noticed that people who will be looking on their phone, they'll be hunched over, they will literally be taking up as little space as they can. They'll get onto the stage and they'll have like vocal fries where they just go high and low pitch, all these kind of things, and they just don't have presence. Whereas she said that we're trying to build up our energy and we're trying to build up our sort of body language. And she would say, when she's being asked the question, are you nervous? She would say, no, I'm excited, because the difference between nervousness and excited is very minute. But just changing the language that we use can determine the outcome that we actually have. So it's just a curious study that I'm hearing about, because I've actually been putting this in practice for years in all of my classes. And it comes back down to every single thing that I communicate to my students. It's using that style of language. My steps for success. Here's your 3 points, what you need to do to actually get success. You're brilliant builders. You're using this language of winning, and then we're getting success because they actually embody that identity. It's an interesting sort of frame to think about in personal development as well. I was asked the question the other day, are you nervous about starting a new role or anything like that? And I said, no, not really. I'm really just excited about it, doing these new projects, because for me, it is exciting. But if you were to ask and you had, say, social anxiety, where you go up to somebody on the street and you start a conversation, the nervousness you might feel will stop you from doing it. But if you switch it to, no, I'm excited to go and talk to this person, then there's a different outcome. I can see the same thing when it comes to dealing with hard conversations. I'll have to call parents for suspensions or those kind of things. And you know that you're going to get some sort of verbal abuse, and just calling it out is really beneficial. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Remembering effort equals results. I'll see you in the next one.